WADR. Promoting dialogue.
Good evening, and thank you for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. In Senegal, audit shows misreporting in previous government key economic data. Ghana's prosecutor declares Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta a wanted fugitive for connection to multiple corruption cases.
The OSP declares Kenneth Nanaya Ofori-Atta a wanted person. He is a fugitive from justice. The OSP will take all necessary legal steps to secure his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP.
Liberian President Boakai suspends 457 officials following failure to declare assets.
These anti-graft institutions are the ones that we need to work with to give them all of the support that we can in order to strengthen them to fight corruption.
And the Nigerian government readies for the February 15 national dialogue as lawyers of the deposed President Bazoum call for his release. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast, and a warm welcome to our listeners in Ghana, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and in Ghana. Well, let's begin in Senegal here, where the Court of Auditors released a long-awaited review of the country's finances on Wednesday that confirmed the previous government misreported key economic data, including debt and deficit figures. Senegal sovereign euro bonds tumbled after the report was released. The $33 denominated majority led the losses, shedding more than 2 cents to beat at $79. Well, Augustine Coley has more details in this report.
President Bassirou Diomaye Faye, who came to power in April 2024, ordered an audit that revealed that its debt and budget deficit were much wider than former President Macky Sall's administration had reported. As a consequence of the audit, Faye's government decided in June not to table a request for further disbursement under its 3-year $1.8 billion credit facility with the International Monetary Fund (IMF). This led to the IMF suspending the programming pending the review of the Court of Auditors. A spokesperson for the IMF said last week that the fund was working closely with Senegalese authorities to identify their capacity development needs and to implement corrective measures. The report said that the work carried out by the court shows an outstanding debt higher than that shown in the reporting documents. At the end of 2023, the total outstanding debt represented 99.67% of gross domestic product (GDP), it added. That compared with a previously recorded figure of 74.41%. The document, which covers public finances from 2019 to March 2024, said it also detected other anomalies and data discrepancies between the period and the actual numbers. The reviewed budget deficit for 2023 stood at 12.3% of GDP compared with 4.9% reported by the previous administration, the court said.
Augustin Coley filed that report. Meanwhile, the Senegalese government and the authority in France are setting up a joint commission to arrange the departure of French troops from Senegal's territory by the end of 2025. This was disclosed by the foreign ministers of both countries in a joint statement on Wednesday. Recall Senegalese President Bassirou Diomaye Faye said last year that former colonial power France should close all its military bases in the country. The statement by both countries stated that the two countries intend to work together in a new defense and security partnership that takes into account the strategic priorities of all parties. Liberia's President Joseph Boakai has suspended all 457 officials who failed to declare their assets within the designated time frame. This action comes as part of a broader commitment to combat corruption and promote good governance in the country. The president had previously issued a directive on November 27, 2024, which provided a 10-day grace period for government officials to comply with the asset declaration requirement. Abraham Parker in Monrovia has more details in this report.
Following the expiration of this period, the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission reported that approximately 457 officials failed to meet the deadline and will now face suspension for 1 month without pay or until they fulfill the declaration requirement. In addition to the suspension, President Bouaka mandated that all suspended officials must immediately surrender any government assets to the heads of their respective agencies or authorized personnel. Mohammed Ali, a senior member of the party, quoting the party's petition, said they have also called for an expansion of the LACC's focus to include audits and ongoing cases related to the Central Bank of Liberia and the Liberia Telecommunications Authority.
These anti-graft institutions are the ones that we need to work with to give them all of the support that we can in order to strengthen them to fight corruption.
Some Liberians have, however, lauded the Liberian leader for his position on the fight against corruption.
President's decision is quite welcoming, but for me, I feel like it's belated because that should have been done in the first half.
The decision of the president is necessary because working in government or officials have to declare their assets.
Many think President Bouaka's actions reflect a determined effort to strengthen the integrity of government operations in Liberia and to foster a culture of accountability that is essential. For Newslink on the West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Abraham Parker reporting from Monrovia.
A latest report released by the West Africa Civil Society Institute WACSI and the Bond UK highlights several significant challenges that global civil society organizations face in implementing sustainable programs. Titled FCDO Engagement Report on Shaping the Future of Centrally Managed Civil Society and Civic Space Programming. The document was developed through a global engagement exercise funded by the UK Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. Key findings and recommendations draw insights from civil society leaders across the UK, Eastern Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, Sub-Saharan Africa, Central Asia, and the Indo-Pacific region. The report was launched on Wednesday via Zoom, and extensive discussions were held regarding its findings, recommendations, and the way forward. Here is Dr. Nana Afajinu, WACSI Executive Director, giving an overview of the report.
It's a significant moment, not only because it demonstrates FCDO's willingness to walk the talk of engaging civil society in its development programming and planning, but also because it's coming at a time when these kinds of engagements are crucial to determining how we can work together as governments and civil society to save this world, literally, from the existential threats that we are facing to human dignity, to survival, and the well-being. What we are increasingly seeing in recent times, and I'm very delighted to be part of this function. The development of such a comprehensive and insightful piece of work requires not only expertise, but also a deep understanding of the complex landscape in which we operate. So as WACSI, we are deeply honored to have worked alongside Bond throughout 2023 and 2024 to facilitate this essential engagement. The report is not timely, but also critical because we are navigating shifting geopolitical landscapes. We need to interrogate global funding models. We are reimagining international development, and we are confronting increasing pressures on civic space. And this research provides a solid foundation for shaping the future of civil society and donor relationships. Well, from the UK perspective, but we believe this should be something that should also inspire other bilateral donors like the FCDO. It offers a roadmap for a more equitable and effective approach to partnerships, and it's one that prioritizes the needs of communities and promotes long-term sustainability.
That was Dr. Nana Afajinu, WACSI Executive Director. At Mali University, lecturers, researchers are on strike for the third week in a row. The movement, which began on January 27, is widely followed in most of the country's universities and top-level educational institutions. Chris Vatijo has more details in this report.
Malian teacher researchers are demanding the application with reminder of their research bonus, promised since 2017 and never paid. The unions are maintaining the pressure after being ignored by the transitional authorities. Dialogue has finally been initiated. The union sub-SECMA coordination finally met with the Minister of Higher Education and Labour last Friday. The establishment of a commission was approved to determine the amount and terms of application of the research bonus. In particular, the timetable. The unions have requested a formal report of the meeting, which is still awaited. Some wonder if this is a government strategy to make the movement run out of steam. But the union reiterated that the establishment of its commission reflects the goodwill of the government that will bring solution. In the meantime, the unions are keeping up to the pressure. The strike remains scheduled until next Saturday. For now, the Malian Ministry of Higher Education are yet to speak or issue a statement.
Christopher Ticho filed that report. We cross over now to Nigeria, where the Labour Congress NLC has condemned the implementation of a 50% tariff hike by telecommunication companies, demanding immediate reversal to the old tariff. The NLC and the federal government had earlier constituted a 10-man committee to deliberate on the tariff hike within 2 weeks and report back before any final decision would be made on the new telecom tariff structure. Abdullah has more details in this report.
Despite the agreement, telecom firms have proceeded with the increase, prompting NLC to issue a March 1 deadline for a total shutdown of their operations if the tariffs are not reverted. In a communique signed by President Joe Ajero and General Secretary Emma Ogwaja, following a meeting of the NLC Central Working Committee in Lokoja on Tuesday, the union accused telecom firms of betraying trust and disregarding due process by implementing the hike before the review by the 10-man committee was completed. The Congress also criticized the government for its failure to protect the citizens from corporate exploitation. As a first step in resisting the tariff hike, the NLC has directed Nigerian workers and other willing citizens to boycott the services of MTN, Airtel and Glo daily between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. from February 13 until the end of February 2025. The NLC directed all its state councils to commence immediate sensitization and mobilization of their members and the general public within their jurisdictions. It also requested its affiliate unions to mobilize their members across the country to observe electronic silence during the designated hours. While acknowledging the need for fiscal reforms, the Congress insists that any tax policies must be designed to alleviate the burdens on Nigerian workers and not worsen the existing economic hardship.
Abdullah Hassan filed a report. While staying in Nigeria, the House of Representatives Committee on Public Account has called on the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission to investigate 2 former top government officials over an alleged financial mismanagement of over 3.2 billion naira or $2 million. The officials in question, William Salu and Yarima Tafa, served as permanent secretaries in Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Labour. Lawmakers say the alleged infractions occurred while they were in office. From Abuja, Usman Umara report.
The Public Accounts Committee is also raising concerns about government ministries, departments and agencies ignoring parliamentary invitations to respond to audit queries. Committee Chairman Bamidele Salam revealed that despite sending 7 letters to the Ministry of Labour and Employment, officials have failed to appear before the committee or provide necessary documents to clear 32 audit queries from the 2020 financial report.
We sustain all the recommendations of the Auditor General and direct the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission and the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission to invite the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Labour and Employment for the year 2015-2019, Mr. William Nwanko and the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Yerima Peter Tarfa, 2020-2021, to answer questions on the expenditure of the various sums of money totaling almost 10 billion naira, which the Auditor General found against the Federal Ministry of Labour and Employment in those years.
He added that since Alao and Tafa were the chief accounting officers when the alleged financial infractions occurred, they should be held accountable. The committee has now given the current permanent secretary of the Labour Ministry, Saliu Usman, 72 hours to appear before lawmakers and respond to audit queries from 2021 financial year, or risk having the committee uphold the Auditor General's recommendation against the ministry, which includes denying the ministry the approval for the 2025 budgetary estimates. The lawmakers say they are racing to resolve outstanding financial queries from the 2020 and 2021 audit reports before the 2022 report is submitted in April. This case highlights ongoing concerns about financial accountability and transparency in Nigeria's public sector. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and online on wadr.org. Here is a reminder of our top stories. In Senegal, audit shows misreporting in previous government key economic data. Ghana's prosecutor declares Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta a wanted fugitive for connection to multiple corruption cases. Liberian President Bouakar suspends 457 officials fleeing failure to declare assets. And still ahead of the news, the Nigerian government readies for the February 15 national dialogue as lawyers of the opposed President Bazoum call for his release. We do have a guest interview and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget, we are streaming live on wadr.org and do follow live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Now let's take you to Ghana, where the former finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, under the immediate past administration, has been declared wanted by the Office of the Special Prosecutor, OSP. Ofori-Atta, according to the prosecutor, is wanted in connection with multiple corruption investigations, including cases related to the National Cathedral Project, Strategic Mobilization Limited, and 2 other cases. At a press briefing on Wednesday, Special Prosecutor Kisi Ajiabeng announced that Ofori-Atta is now a wanted person and must return to Ghana immediately to face questioning. He warned that failure to comply would result in measures to compel his return. WDL's Accra correspondent Nadi Tete completes the story.
Former Finance Minister Kenneth Ofori-Atta is now officially a fugitive. The Special Prosecutor Kisi Ajiabeng says Ofori-Atta is wanted for questioning over several high-profile financial transactions, including contracts related to revenue assurance, the National Cathedral Project, and the procurement of ambulances.
Purchases and after-sales service and maintenance of 307 Mercedes-Benz Sprinter 305 CDI ambulances for the National Ambulance Service. Payments out of and utilization of the tax refund account of Ghana Revenue Authority. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, the fugitive's name is Kenneth Nanaya Ofori-Atta.
Despite being summoned to appear before the OSP, the former minister has remained outside the country, citing medical reasons. However, the Office of the Special Prosecutor is not convinced.
We are of the firm conviction here that this is only a ruse employed by Mr. Ofori-Atta in aid of his intention to avoid returning to the jurisdiction and to personally answer questions in respect of the investigations.
The OSP has given Mr. Ofori-Atta until February 10 to indicate when he would return. In a dramatic turn, Mr. Ofori-Atta's lawyers also claimed that his residence was raided by unidentified men, but the OSP has strongly denied any involvement.
Mr. Ofori-Atta, OSP did not cause any persons, however uniformed or bedecked, to raid your house on Tuesday, 11 February 2025 or on any other day. Mr. Ofori-Atta, that could not have been the OSP, and that is not our style.
With Mr. Ofori-Atta refusing to return voluntarily, the OSP has now escalated its actions.
The OSP will take all necessary legal steps to secure his return to the jurisdiction and attendance at the OSP. And this is to Mr. Ofori-Atta. You have 2 choices. You can either return to the jurisdiction voluntarily, or the OSP will enforce your return.
Meanwhile, the Special Prosecutor has also announced fresh investigations into corruption cases at the Minerals Income Investment Fund and the National Petroleum Authority, as well as a prosecution of 6 individuals involved in government's payroll fraud. For WADR, Nadi Tete, Accra.
Now let's take you to the Sahel, starting in Burkina Faso, where authorities have received assurances from Brussels for strengthened relations. During his visit to Burkina Faso on Tuesday, the new special representative of the European Union to the Sahel said the bloc intends to continue to support the country with development aid and food security. João Gomes Gravino made this commitment while meeting with the Burkinabe Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jean-Marie Traoré. Sankle Janko completes the story.
The special representative to the Sahel informed that the EU is actively involved in humanitarian projects in Ouagadougou to improve the living conditions of the population. For João Gomes Cravinho, the Ouagadougou meeting therefore aims to strengthen ties between the EU and Burkina Faso. Receiving the EU envoy, Jean-Marie Traoré emphasized the need for dialogue between both parties to enable healthy formulation of policies that take into account the potential of Burkina Faso and the Sahel. Since the insurgency began in the country, displacing millions of people and triggering one of the biggest humanitarian crises, the EU has granted millions of euros in aid. In 2024, the bloc allocated 45 million euros for humanitarian aid to support actions on food insecurity and malnutrition, health, water sanitation, and hygiene. The withdrawal of the ACE member countries from the Economic Community of West African States was discussed by Traoré and his visiting guests. The Burkinabe minister provided reasons for their exit from ECOWAS, clarifying that their actions was necessitated by the desire to address common challenges faced by Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger. Following Traoré's response, the EU envoy João Gomes Cravinho indicated that the European Union is in a position of neutrality and respects the sovereign choice of countries.
Sankle Janko filed that report. While still in the Sahel, the Nigerian government is making preparations for the national conference scheduled for February 15 to 19th, 2025. The stakeholders' consultation will define their roadmap for the transition since the power grab in July 2023 by General Abdurrahman Chiani. Since then, the deposed president, Mohamed Bazoum, has been detained by the military and accused of committing treason. The international community, NGOs, and several activists have condemned his arbitrary detention. On Tuesday, Bazoum's lawyers, after a long while, voiced out again, calling for the immediate release of their client. The deposed head of state is being detained alongside his wife and son.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, Dr. Evans Nono, a Ghanaian economist and financial analyst, joins us from Accra to the short and long-term measures the new government has in bridging the funding gap following the suspension of USAID assistance to African nations.
Yes, so my initial reaction was if we plan for it, because, Trump in his campaign had always said that if he assumes office, it would be America first. And so you could easily make inference from that as to the kind of foreign policy he would embark on. And so if you were a serious country, you should bear that in mind, that it is likely that the amount of aid to countries from America could be curtailed or reduced drastically. So serious countries, I'm sure, might have planned for that. So Ghana, in our case, I was really thinking, did we do something about it? Did we factor his America First policy when we were drafting our mini budget? And have we really taken that into consideration as we prepare for the main draft of our budget for this year?
Now that President Mahama has instructed that the finance ministry bridge the funding gap, especially that caters to the health needs of the country amounting to $156 million, how do you think the ministry or the government can achieve this?
We now would have to consider the expenditure side and the revenue side. So with the expenditure side, if you look at the initial steps of the government now, everything shows that they are trying to cut down on expenditure, and that is nice, because if you look at the size of the government as they preached when they were canvassing for votes, and their behavior now in government suggests that they really want to cut down on expenditure. Now, that is good. If they should continue that, we will be able to reduce drastically the expenditure side of our budget, and that would mean that we have enough resources to do other things. That notwithstanding, we also have to look at good ways of broadening the tax base, because now that we are not getting some of these grants, we have to seriously look at how to cast the net wider in terms of revenue collection and how best we can formalize the informal sector of the economy so that those that are not paying taxes could be made to pay. Once we have the correct data, we are able to trace most of our transactions and by way of formalizing the informal sector. Then another area we could look at is some of these freebies, the free SHS we are running, the school feeding program, free tuition fee for first-year students in the university, these free things. We have to have a second look at it. Is it possible for us to have a review of something like the free SHS, the school feeding program? If there are leakages through which monies have been getting into private pockets, can we block those things? And is it possible to make it more targeting? Could we target really the poor and cause the rich to pay? These are some of the things we could look at, because obviously we have expressed reservations about some of the programs we've been running and how free they should be.
So how does this go in affecting his general policy statement, the promises he made during the campaigns?
Yeah, so obviously, if he is able to go by his promises, the kind of things he promised to do, then he would have to look at some of these free things, because the thing is, he promised to continue most of them, but he never promised that he wouldn't have a review of them. So having a review doesn't mean that you are stopping it. About the impact on the policies the government promised to embark on, obviously, it will have great impact. If the government is supposed to target price stabilization, work on the exchange rate, and still undertake developmental projects, if we don't work on the revenue side of our budget, we will run into crisis, given the fact that we are still at IMF and we are having to face some conditionalities.
Dr. Evans Nono is a Ghanaian economist and financial analyst. Well, in sport news, the International Boxing Association (IBA) says it is to take legal action against the International Olympic Committee (IOC) over the inclusion of Algeria's Iman Khalif and Taiwan's Lin Yu Ting at last year's Olympic Games. The two female boxers had been excluded from the IBA's 2023 World Championships after the fighters failed gender eligibility tests, but the IOC cleared them to fight and both went on to win gold medals in Paris. The IOC organized the boxing in Paris following the expulsion of the IBA from the Olympic movement after financial and ethical irregularities. In a statement which linked the action to U.S. President Donald Trump's executive order last week seeking to ban transgender athletes from participating in women's sports, the IBA said that it is filing an official complaint with the Attorney General of Switzerland regarding the IOC's action. It added that it was filing similar complaints in France and the United States. And we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening. And many thanks to Maudo Juf and Share and Jai for their technical support. Well, do connect with us on all of our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WDR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio, English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is our flagship gender program, 50-50. I am Imo Edet. Good evening.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM.